You're watching By Washington on CBS 10 WILM. Here's your host, Don Ansell.
We're back. We're talking about random acts of violence. Our guests are two local experts. Dr. Daryl Irwin is in sociology and criminology at UNC Wilmington. Dr. Rich Ogle is also at UNCW, and he's a psychologist, has a specialty in aggression and violence. We said we'd start talking a little about the media and what part the media plays in all of this. We mentioned in the last segment the 24/7 cable news cycle always seems to have a pressing need for some breaking news. Everything is breaking news every moment, and events like that kind of fill the bill, would you say?
Well, they do, and without a doubt, a good reporter is going to try to ferret out all the information on a killing. The other thing that criminologists have found useful in the past 20 years with the media is the simple idea of Crime Stoppers, the preventative side of crime, which is, phone in a tip. An unsolved case will appear on your screen.
You said this type of violence is on the rise. Prevention's not working.
It's not working the way we think of it right now, but we were just talking about cell phones. Anybody who has a cell phone on can be tracked. The first thing that I would have thought of if I was a police officer thinking about this guy on the rampage at the Carthage nursing home would be, can I track him through his cell phone? Can I track the Virginia Tech killer through a cell phone or some sort of device, a camera, closed-circuit television? UNCW now has closed-circuit television in all of its common areas of its dorms. So.
Rich, do you think sensationalizing events like this fuels activity, people to copy this kind of activity?
Well, I think, like Daryl says, there's a balance. On one hand, I do think that for some people, individuals who may have certain psychological disorders, may view the constant media coverage and be interested by it, be fascinated by it, and again, find themselves attracted to it. On the other hand, the media coverage that can be intense and specific and detailed is what can allow the average person to get a sense more of why this happens. One of the reasons why we're doing this show is to help the everyday individual who's not an academic, who doesn't study this as they're living, understand why this happens. And I think the media plays an important role in that. And so I think it's important to find a balance between not sensationalizing it to attract the low numbers of individuals, but also to help the everyday average person to just kind of
try to make sense of it all. But
exactly.
does the media does sensationalize, don't they? I mean, the cable networks certainly. Breaking news, and they're, of course, bringing you the latest news, but they're also doing it in kind of a tabloid way.
They do, and of course, we have one complete channel devoted to crime events, which is now called, True TV.
Yeah.
But, and there was some, one of the competitor networks had their, tape of the Virginia Tech killer pulled after, some questionable ethical question about sensationalism, and I think that's a good question, but that's your field's question to answer.
Yeah, I guess everybody in their own says, well, we're here to enlighten, not to sensationalize. Okay. It seems to me, though, that more youngsters are committing random acts of violence. Young kids, college kids, that kid in Germany that just went out and killed 15 people. Is there any basis to that it's skewing younger and younger now?
Well, it definitely seems to be, and I think this is an area where having a criminology perspective and a psychology perspective is very helpful, because I think there are probably different variables, different things that cause each individual event. It's not the same thing, and I think what we're seeing in young people is that young people, given the changes, given maybe a psychological problem that is blooming, is manifesting for the first time. They're not aware how to deal with it. The people in their environment aren't aware how to deal with it. And this is a way in which it manifests. And again, one of the things that I've noticed over time in looking at this is that, especially with the young folks, the teenagers, is that, and especially males, is that this seems to be, like I said, a way to kill oneself.
Oh, the suicide.
That is becoming more popular and making a statement at the same time.
What aspect, how much responsibility does society have in this? If violent crime is on the rise, if younger people are getting involved, do we have to look at ourselves and say, what's fueling this?
Oh, most definitely. I think we do, and I think that's where Rich's field has a lot of, there's a lot of hope for psychology among, and counseling among younger people, where we know that the family may be fractured in some way, and the children are not revealing their fears and their problems to their parents, or necessarily to anybody other than a professional. I want to agree with both of you that the violent crime, and specifically murder, at least in the 1990s, was skewing much younger as far as the perpetrators. They were younger, they had access to guns. There's 500,000 guns stolen a year in the United States, so even if a family doesn't have one in the home, you know, there's a black market in guns.
Of course, gun proponents would say, you know, guns don't kill people, people kill people. But I want to talk a little about what I call our recreational media. We have movies, we have TV shows, we have pro wrestling exhibitions, video games, music lyrics. They're full of violent images. Does that have play in all of this? I mean, I'll tell you why I ask. They charged, for a 30-second commercial during the Super Bowl, they charge $1 million. And that's because supposedly they're very effective. Now, are you saying, or are we saying that a 2-hour movie of constant violence has no effect, and yet they can get 30 seconds for $1 million for a 30-second commercial?
Well, I think with the violence, we've seen it maybe in a more concentrated form. I know that the Ultimate Fight shows, if people aren't familiar with them, they're a combination of wrestling and boxing in a sort
extreme,
of a
it's
steel
called
cage.
Extreme.
Yes, yeah, and there's a league now. And in a steel cage, and two people are locked in there till the one comes out the winner. Well, that has the largest audience for males between 18 and 30, I think, of any show anywhere on television, and that's a cable show on a certain channel. So they have to, and that's the largest audience for that segment of people. So yes, they can tune in to violent content. Does it have an effect? It certainly has an effect on aggression. Do they act on that aggression?
Well, I'll tell you what, when we come back, we'll talk more about the recreational media and the part that it plays in violence. So stay with us, we'll be right back.